Imagine finally landing a high-stakes interview with the tech giant behind TikTok. You are ready to impress, but the first sign that something is off comes with the scheduling. The potential boss insists on taking the video call from his office at 5:00 a.m. You dial in, fully confident in your well-honed interview skills. But within minutes, the atmosphere shifts drastically. You aren't being asked standard behavioral questions. You're being grilled on obscure internal technical details, things only a company insider or a direct competitor could possibly know. You start sweating. When you try to explain that this information isn't public, the interviewer doesn't nod understandingly. Instead, he simply Googles a specific company blog post, challenges you on why you hadn't memorized its contents, and coldly delivers the verdict. Yeah. You don't seem prepared for a job opportunity you claim to take seriously. It feels less like an interview and more like a calculated humiliation ritual. But here is the fascinating part. This wasn't an isolated incident of a toxic manager having a rough morning. From unscheduled interrogation calls at 9 p.m. to questions that border on outright rude, this aggression is actually the industry standard. It is a phenomenon known as wolf mentality, a cultural norm where the Confucian ideals of moderation are replaced by a demand to be tough, hungry, and constantly on the attack. Yet, despite the brutality of the system, China's brightest talent is still fighting tooth and nail to get in. Why? Okay, so let's unpack this. The intense pressure we just described, the aggression, the technical grilling, the demand for just complete preparation, it isn't arbitrary. It's not random.
No, not at all. It's the cultural operating system behind companies that have achieved global dominance in these hyper-competitive fields.
Right, like e-commerce, AI, telecommunications. I mean, think about that 5:00 a.m. call time. That's not just a power play.
It's a signal. It tells you that the workday never really ends, and the commitment they expect from you is total.
And that's our mission for this deep dive. We're going to explore how this high-intensity work culture, this wolf mentality and the systems it enforces is really the engine driving China's incredible innovation and economic growth.
And crucially, how this whole dynamic ecosystem is now expanding across Southeast Asia.
Exactly. It's offering these, crucial and sometimes brutal insights for emerging tech hubs. Places like Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, Vietnam, and Thailand.
I think it's so important to establish the correct context right from the start. When we analyze the wolf mentality, we can't just frame it as some passing management trend or, a toxic culture.
It's more than that.
It's much more. We need to see it as a necessary high kinetic energy standard. This standard is what fuels the kind of exponential growth and, frankly, the unmatched speed and innovation that we're seeing play out on the global stage.
And this environment, it just forces this rapid professional evolution.
It does. It demands constant self-improvement, aggression, total dedication. And for the talent who chooses this path, it goes way beyond the paycheck.
Right.
For China's brightest and most ambitious talent, this intensity. It's not just about the financial reward. The sheer scale and the impact of the work itself is shaping these highly purpose-driven careers.
And you have to remember, many in this generation are already materially comfortable.
That's a great point. They grew up during periods of sustained economic ascent, so now they're actively seeking something more meaningful in their professional lives.
They want to make an impact.
They want to transform industries, impact millions, even billions of users, and really mold the future of the digital economy. And that sense of profound purpose is what allows these companies to attract and retain the best, despite the extreme demands. It's why they line up to join these aggressive corporate structures.
Okay, so that's the why. Let's get into the how. Here's where we dive into the actual structure that enables this whole cultural operating system. To really understand the practical application of the wolf mentality, we have to define its foundational system, the 996 work schedule. Most of you listening have probably heard the term, but let's define it precisely and talk about what it really signifies.
The definition itself is pretty straightforward, but also pretty brutal. Employees are expected to work from 9:00 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week.
Which comes out to a 72-hour work week.
A 72-hour work week. And while it's true that the Supreme People's Court declared the practice illegal back in 2021, and some companies have, publicly adjusted their policies.
In reality, on the ground.
In reality, the 996 schedule has solidified itself as the de facto standard. Or at least, it's aggressively encouraged across huge segments of the mainland Chinese internet and tech sector. It's sort of the minimum level of effort expected for any serious career advancement.
And the mentality that goes with it is the key. We're talking about the wolf ethos. Yep. Be tough, be strong, always demand more, know exactly what you want, and go on the attack. This isn't a subtle shift, is it? It's a radical replacement for traditional cultural values.
That's the critical insight here. If you look at the historical foundation of Chinese society, it was really anchored in Confucian ideals. Moderation, harmony, the concept of he and ritual propriety, or li.
All about balance and stability.
Exactly. These concepts emphasized balance, rectitude, and long-term societal stability. The wolf mentality demands the complete opposite of that. It demands imbalance, constant escalation, immediate conquest, and a total commitment to professional aggression.
It's a cultural disruption.
Like a profound, almost revolutionary cultural disruption that's been engineered specifically for hypermodern economic competition.
And this aggression is institutionalized, right? It means you are either part of the culture or you're effectively sidelined.
Absolutely. The analogy of the corporate pack is highly descriptive. Leading tech giants operate with this pack mentality, and it creates a very sharp, very binary choice for ambitious talent.
You're either in or you're out.
You're either in or out of this high-octane competitive system. And if you choose to prioritize, say, work-life balance, or to exit the system entirely, you immediately lose access to the vast resources, the accelerated career tracks, and the sheer scale of technological opportunity that these companies uniquely offer. The system is designed to reward absolute dedication and, well, punish anything less.
And what's crucial is that this pressure isn't some dirty secret. It's championed from the very top. What is the argument these leaders are using to justify such a punishing schedule?
The defense is framed as being meritocratic and necessary for global conquest. Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, he famously called 996 a huge blessing.
A blessing, that's a strong word.
It is. His rhetoric positioned it not as corporate exploitation, but as a necessary and exclusive gateway to success. He stated directly, there is no way to achieve the success one wants without paying extra effort and time.
So in his view, if you don't want to work 996, you just don't want it badly enough.
That's the implication, that you lack the ambition necessary to succeed in this demanding modern economy. Is a powerful narrative framing extreme effort as a personal necessity for greatness, rather than a corporate requirement.
And he's not alone in that view.
Not at all. Richard Liu, the founder of JD.com, he echoed this by emphasizing that the focus is on those who have the desire to push oneself to the limit. He even went so far as to publicly defend layoffs by saying the company was targeting slackers.
So this leadership rhetoric, it serves a dual purpose.
It does. First, it normalizes extreme effort as a professional virtue. And second, it validates the wolf employee's self-sacrifice by implying that only the dedicated few are truly fit for the job.
Which brings us back to that central question. Why do China's brightest actively embrace this? We know about the fat paychecks and the career outlooks, but let's dig into this deeper psychological driver, this hunger for meaning.
This is maybe the most fascinating part of the whole cultural shift. The work isn't just transactional, it's seen as transformative. In these high-pressure environments, the talent is exposed to technology and to problems on a scale that traditional careers simply cannot offer.
They're not just coding another feature for an app.
No. They're involved in projects that impact millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of people. For example, think about the massive reach of a platform like Taobao or JD.com.
So an engineer working on logistics algorithms.
That engineer might be fundamentally transforming the lives of remote villagers, suddenly enabling them to make a great living by selling their specialized local products to a national or even a global market. That's a powerful motivator.
That's a real sense of purpose.
Or consider the urgent, life-saving services that were enabled by this kind of aggressive tech deployment, like facilitating reliable, no-contact delivery of essential goods during the coronavirus outbreak. This kind of work transcends the individual job description. It allows these young professionals to feel like they are directly molding the economic and social future of their nation.
That reframes the sacrifice completely. It's not about personal pain anymore, it's about national contribution. It provides a moral justification for that 72-hour week that's very hard to ignore.
It is. And there's a clear operational reality that underpins his belief. From the leadership's perspective, the rapid, exponential rate of growth they need to sustain requires these companies to maintain aggressive, stay lean philosophies.
So fewer people doing more work.
The prevailing perception is that increasing the headcount would inevitably diminish competitiveness and dilute the performance of the core group. So the psychological contract becomes, only by maximizing the output of a smaller, intensely competitive, and highly aggressive team can we maintain the velocity necessary to dominate global markets. And that belief is internalized by the wolfified employee.
Okay. So the intensity we've described, the wolf mentality, the 996 schedule, it's not the cause. It's the result of a much larger systemic engine of pressure.
Exactly.
And it's driven by this profound sense of hypercompetition known as Neiwan. Let's really unpack this concept of inward rolling. It might be a new term for a lot of people listening.
So Neiwan, which translates to involution, literally means to curl inwards or inside rolling. It describes a phenomenon that's common in saturated high population environments where immense, ever-increasing effort yields diminishing or even negative returns.
Give us an analogy.
Imagine a crowded treadmill where everyone has to run faster and faster just to stay in the same spot relative to the person next to them. It creates this stressful, dead loop in which people constantly force themselves.
So it isn't simply a race to the top. It sounds more like a desperate, self-exploitative race to avoid falling to the bottom.
That's precisely it. Anthropologists have identified it as a race that participants are not allowed to fail or exit. It vividly captures the lifestyle of being overworked, stressed, anxious, and feeling trapped by this excessive competition.
You're forced to exploit yourself to gain even a tiny advantage.
Exactly. People are compelled to gain a slight advantage by exploiting themselves, often by working absurd hours, just to maintain their existing social status or their job security in a heavily saturated field. It becomes less about climbing the social ladder and more about frantically holding on to the rung you already occupy.
And this cultural process, it translates directly and brutally to the elite tech industry and the job market there.
Oh, absolutely. The sheer volume of highly qualified graduates entering the workforce every single year makes the tech job market intensely competitive. And this systemic pressure, it manifests in the workplace as a kind of existential dread.
The ultimate fear for workers isn't just missing out on the next big bonus.
No, it's the palpable anxiety of losing what they already have, their high-status job, their salary, their social standing. And that underlying anxiety compels workers to accept and even self-enforce the 996 standard. They view relentless work as basic professional insurance in a fast-moving, unforgiving environment.
To really understand the full scope of this pressure, though, we have to look at where it begins, because this work culture, it's just the culmination of an intense pressure cooker that starts much, much earlier in life.
It connects right back to the education system, which acts as the primary feeder mechanism for this whole culture of Neiwan.
For the middle class, the perception of education has fundamentally shifted.
It has. It's no longer seen primarily as an accelerator for upward mobility. Instead, it's viewed as a vital defensive tool to prevent their children from falling backward on the social ladder. And this parental anxiety, it fuels some extreme educational measures.
We hear terms like jiwa or chicken child and the whole tiger mom parenting style. How does this actually play out for the students themselves?
The measures are extreme, and they're incredibly expensive. You see parents pressuring primary school students to master secondary school physics or chemistry through intensive after-school tutoring.
Subject they won't even see in school for years.
For years. In hyper-competitive districts like Haidian, which is really the heart of China's elite academic world, children are learning advanced C++ and Python programming from a very, very young age. Parents are willing to pay astronomical real estate prices just to live in these competitive zones, combined with tutoring fees that can hit 1,000 RMB per hour for advanced classes.
It's an arms race.
It is an unsustainable arms race for academic credentials where the cost of entry is just constantly inflating.
And this level of pressure, it inevitably creates these cultural icons that symbolize the sacrifice required.
Indeed. And the poster child for this pressure became known as the involuted king. This was a student at Tsinghua University whose photo went viral.
What was he doing?
He was captured diligently studying on his laptop while riding a bicycle across campus. And that image, it resonated with millions of young people because it perfectly symbolized the compulsion to utilize every single second. To go to what the sources describe as disturbing extremes to perform, even during a simple transition period like biking between classes. This public acknowledgement, even celebration, of hyper-effort shows how deeply the concept of Neiwan has been internalized.
So now let's connect this internal systemic pressure, this unrelenting velocity born from self-exploitation. Let's tie it to the global effect. This relentless competitive energy has a staggering consequence. Innovation velocity.
And this is the critical operational insight for any emerging tech hub that's listening to us right now.
Tell us how.
This self-imposed pressure, it results in an operational speed and an agility that fundamentally alters the timeline for product development and market response. It often leaves global competitors just reeling. The Shenzhen example, perfectly illustrates this market velocity.
What happened there?
A product manager, a man named Chen, and his team received urgent competitive intel. A major Silicon Valley competitor was planning to launch a new, sophisticated AI filter in just 2 weeks.
2 weeks! That's an incredibly aggressive deadline, even for a standard feature launch, let alone trying to replicate and improve on a competitor's tech.
In any conventional tech environment, that would be seen as an impossible timeline. But for Chen's team, who were completely immersed in this wolf culture, this intelligence wasn't viewed as a threat.
It was prey.
It was seen as prey. The team mobilized immediately, and the sources, they paint this vivid picture, round-the-clock development with the office lights never turning off for 10 straight days.
And they weren't just trying to copy it.
Their goal was not mere replication. They iterated on the feature 3 times, incorporating user testing, refining the product, all before the rival company in Silicon Valley even managed to launch their beta version.
So what was the outcome?
The outcome was total market conquest. They captured the market share 48 hours before the competitor's planned release, and they did it with a superior, more mature, user-tested product.
That speed, it really confirms that the system, however high the internal cost, is highly effective in terms of raw market aggression and output.
And this extreme hyper-responsiveness, this ability to just dominate the product timeline, is the key operational insight. It demonstrates how internal psychological pressure driven by Neyuan can be weaponized into an unmatched market-winning velocity. It's all about compressed time to market and relentless iteration. That becomes the defining competitive advantage.
So if the competitive environment domestically fueled by Neyuan is forcing companies to constantly iterate and move at this staggering speed, those companies are going to saturate their local market very, very quickly.
They are.
Which begs the question, where does all that kinetic energy go next?
That's a really essential bridge point. The massive innovation velocity and the immense scale of the domestic digital economy, it creates a necessary economic pressure valve.
A pressure valve.
Right. Companies that operate on the wolf principle, they can't afford to slow down. Slowing down means falling behind, which, as we've discussed, is the ultimate fear. So once domestic opportunities become even slightly constrained, or the growth rate begins to plateau,
the only way to sustain that exponential momentum is to go global.
it's to aggressively seek external markets. It isn't just an opportunistic growth strategy. It's an economic imperative driven by the internal culture. The aggressive output born from the 996 culture generates products, services, and infrastructure technologies that need new homes. They need new markets to process data, connect users, and generate revenue streams.
Which leads us directly into China's massive global strategy. So what does this aggressive expansion look like on the world stage, especially for key emerging regions like Southeast Asia? This intense kinetic energy, created by the wolf mentality and fueled by Neyuan, is the force driving China's massive global expansion strategy, the Digital Silk Road, or DSR.
The DSR, as we know it today, is the digital component of China's broader Belt and Road Initiative, the BRI. It was initially launched back in 2015, but critically, since 2019, it's been aggressively promoted as a standalone initiative.
And that elevation in status is important.
It means the DSR is now a critical pillar of China's foreign policy agenda. It reflects the global focus on digital transformation and infrastructure.
Let's detail the twin factors that are shaping this, the push and the pull that led to the DSR's elevation and its focus on Southeast Asia.
Okay, so the push factor originates from China's own explosive domestic success. The scale of the digital economy there reached a staggering 45.5 trillion yuan, which is about $6.37 trillion by 2022.
An enormous figure.
It is. And it accounted for nearly half, 49.8% of China's entire GDP that year. This massive success creates a necessary overflow. The private Chinese tech giants simply must explore overseas markets to maintain their aggressive wolf-style growth trajectory.
And then there's the pull factor, which comes from the recipient nations themselves.
Yes. The pull factor is driven by China's perception of the significant digital gap in many developing countries, particularly within ASEAN. Many of these nations possess underdeveloped digital infrastructure, which, hinders their ability to participate fully and efficiently in the global digital economy.
So the DSR is China's comprehensive, systematic effort to fill that specific gap.
Exactly. By funding, building, and aggressively upgrading the recipient country's digital infrastructure.
Now, we highlighted earlier a crucial distinction between the broader BRI and the DSR in terms of how they're executed, and that is critical to understanding the DSR's unique agility.
That distinction is paramount. While the traditional BRI is heavily dominated by state-owned companies undertaking these massive physical infrastructure projects, like ports and railways, the DSR is predominantly spearheaded by Chinese private tech companies.
We're talking about the big, agile players.
Huawei, Tencent, Alibaba, ZTE, these private giants are the ones on the ground, and they often receive significant policy support and financial backing from Beijing to facilitate their overseas expansion. This market-driven approach, powered by these aggressive private companies, makes the DSR inherently more dynamic and faster-moving than the state-led BR.
This decentralized, market-driven aggression seems perfectly aligned with the speed of the wolf mentality we were just talking about. So how does China institutionalize this ambition, especially through regional cooperative bodies like ASEAN?
The institutional efforts in Southeast Asia are complex and they're highly localized. While Beijing provides the macro supportive intergovernmental frameworks, the actual implementation is often driven by local governments, universities, and private companies on the ground.
And the mechanisms established through ASEAN-China cooperation are designed to solidify this collaboration.
Right. We often see these mechanisms listed, but let's talk about their strategic purpose. For instance, the Action Plan on Digital Economy Cooperation for 2021-2025.
What does that actually do?
It provides a high-level roadmap. It essentially sets joint priorities for the next 4 years in areas like smart cities, artificial intelligence, and e-commerce standards. It signals to all the regional players that digital integration is a central long-term focus.
And there are others.
Yes. We also saw the establishment of the ASEAN-China Initiative on e-commerce in 2023, which aims to reduce trade barriers and facilitate the flow of digital goods, and the China-ASEAN Digital Economy Partnership Initiative from 2020. Plus, China and ASEAN are negotiating an upgrade to their free trade agreement, ACFTA 3.0.
And critically, that upgrade specifically targets these emerging domains.
Exactly. Like the digital economy. It's about streamlining regulations to ensure faster, easier integration of Chinese digital platforms and services across the entire region.
So selling the hardware and building the network is only half the battle. To ensure long-term regional integration, they have to transfer the operational knowledge and build local capacity.
And that is the cornerstone of their localization strategy. It's a major focus of the DSR engagement. Chinese tech companies are heavily invested in talent development and technical training. They provide extensive cybersecurity training sessions and workshops to local government officials, to professionals, and to college students, embedding their technical standards and their knowledge base.
Can you give us a few specific examples of this kind of talent transfer?
Huawei has a really substantial, long-running presence here. Their Seeds for the Future program, which actually began way back in 2011, has provided training to over 3,000 university students from more than 108 countries, with many of those participants coming from Southeast Asia.
And they're targeting government officials, too.
On an even larger, more strategic scale, yes. Huawei launched a massive 5-year digital literacy training course for 100,000 government officials in Indonesia. These programs aren't just for PR. They are tangible examples of high-level technical knowledge transfer, ensuring that local professionals are skilled in operating and maintaining the newly built infrastructure.
The scale of this digital expansion is truly remarkable, and the distribution seems highly strategic. Let's look at the hard data for DSR investments across Southeast Asia between 2017 and 2020.
Well, the initial data confirms comprehensive coverage. Every single Southeast Asian country received DSR investments during that period.
But the investment is highly concentrated.
It is. It reflects some very clear strategic priorities. Indonesia, Singapore, and Malaysia together secured 52.3% of all DSR projects, so over half. While countries like Vietnam and Thailand also received significant investment, the focus on the primary hubs of commerce, finance, and logistics is undeniable.
Why those 3 countries specifically? What makes them attract over half the investment?
Well, Singapore acts as the primary regional financial and technological hub. That makes it an essential node for data hosting and for regional management. Indonesia, as the largest economy and population center, represents the largest potential consumer market for e-commerce and digital services.
And Malaysia?
Malaysia offers a highly strategic geographical and logistical hub, along with a rapidly digitizing economy. So investing heavily in these 3 ensures a strong regional foundation that supports further expansion outward into the remaining ASEAN nations.
And what are the specific investment areas? The clusters where this $500 billion digital economy is focusing its overseas capital.
The investment clusters clearly illustrate a foundational strategy. It's aimed at enabling high-speed connectivity first. The five major areas are telecom, 5G, data centers, fintech, and e-commerce.
So the infrastructure comes first.
Exactly. Telecom projects account for the largest number, immediately followed by 5G network development and data centers. This structure shows a priority on building the high-performance digital highway before focusing on the services like fintech and e-commerce that will run on it.
The data also reinforces what you said earlier about the private sector-led nature of the DSR. Who are the members of the wolf pack leading this charge?
The leading private entities are undeniable. Huawei spearheads the list with 57 projects, followed closely by Alibaba with 29 and ZTE with 28.
So it's not the state-owned companies.
When we analyze the parent entities driving these investments, private companies account for an overwhelming 79%. Now, state-owned enterprises like China Telecom and China Unicom do play a significant role in high-level infrastructure like submarine cables. But the vast majority of the on-the-ground network building and market development is being executed by these aggressive private tech firms, leveraging their wolf-style speed and efficiency.
Let's focus on the critical core infrastructure that's been built more recently, between 2020 and 2023, specifically the 5G networks and the data center dominance.
Huawei has successfully positioned itself as the regional leader in 5G deployment. They moved very quickly to secure key early victories. They were instrumental in building ASEAN's first 5G smart hospital in Thailand, which was a powerful showcase for advanced digital healthcare capabilities.
And they're integrating with physical infrastructure, too.
Yes, they also provided the specialized smart railway solutions for the China-Laos Railway, integrating digital systems directly into cross-border physical infrastructure. Furthermore, Huawei has signed multiple memoranda of understanding with major Indonesian telecommunication providers, including industry giants like Telkomsel and XL Axiata, solidifying their role in network modernization and upgrades across the archipelago.
And all of that high-speed data, it requires massive capacity for local processing and storage. That's where the data center build-out comes in.
It's been a rapid and comprehensive build-out. Chinese companies, and we're talking about Alibaba Cloud, Huawei Cloud, Tencent Cloud, ZTE, they have already constructed 43 data centers across the region.
And this commitment to local data hosting is strategically vital.
It is. It reduces latency and ensures rapid service delivery. And as we saw with the investment distribution, these centers are heavily concentrated in the strategic hubs. Singapore hosts 32.5%, Indonesia hosts 25.6%, Malaysia has 16.3%, and Thailand holds 14.0%. This physical network provides a critical processing backbone for running the region's rapidly growing digital economy.
For that data to flow smoothly between these regional centers and internationally, you need the literal high-speed digital highway. This brings us to the critical long-term strategic investment in fiber optic cables.
This is one of the most critical aspects of the whole DSR strategy. Controlling the physical infrastructure means controlling the speed and flow of information. Companies like HMN Tech, which was formerly associated with Huawei and China Unicom, are major investors in these land and undersea fiber optic cables, which integrate Southeast Asia directly into the wider Asia-Pacific network.
And why is controlling the submarine cable network so important in the long run?
It's the foundational infrastructure. The flow of commerce, finance, military communication, all digital services, it all relies on these cables. Controlling or heavily investing in them allows for faster data routing to favored destinations, it reduces dependence on existing Western-dominated routes, and it ensures competitive data transfer costs.
What are some of the key projects?
Key ongoing projects include the SEA H2X submarine cable, which is spearheaded by China Unicom and expected to be fully operational in 2024. And HMN Tech is involved in numerous projects integrating regional hubs, like the Southeast Asia Hainan-Hong Kong Express, which connects Malaysia, the Philippines, Thailand, and Singapore, and various other regional links like the Malaysia-Cambodia-Thailand cable.
So once the high-speed infrastructure is built, the wolf mentality is applied to market conquest. And this translates directly into e-commerce blitzscaling.
The competition here is immediate and it's aggressive. Alibaba, leveraging the infrastructure its associated companies helped build, has been investing massively. Most notably, they injected $845 million into Lazada, the Singapore-based online retailer.
But the most vivid example of the wolf approach really comes from ByteDance and its TikTok shop in Indonesia.
Right. That's where they face that regulatory pushback from the Indonesian government regarding sales on social media platforms.
And a lot of companies would have pulled back.
But the wolf mentality dictates doubling down, not retreating. Instead of scaling back, TikTok announced a planned $1.5 billion investment to acquire Tokopedia, which is Indonesia's largest e-commerce platform.
It was a lightning-fast, aggressive move.
A market consolidation maneuver designed to comply with local regulations while maintaining total market presence. The perfect example of converting regulatory friction into a strategic opportunity through massive capital deployment and speed.
And it's not just them.
No. We also see PDD's shopping app, Temu, which operates on a hyper-competitive pricing model, entering the Philippines market in 2023. And that immediately escalated the competition against all the established regional players.
The expansion is relentless, and it seems overwhelmingly successful. And it's driven by high technology and, crucially, a highly favorable cost structure.
This is the pragmatic reality that many Southeast Asian nations face. They rely on Chinese technology because of the significant economic advantage it provides. Chinese telecom equipment, particularly from Huawei, is consistently 20 to 30% cheaper than comparable equipment from Western competitors like Ericsson or Nokia.
That economic advantage is a massive benefit for nations operating on tighter budgets.
It is. And the financial incentives make the deal even more attractive. The cost benefit is often sweetened by highly attractive state-backed financing mechanisms like concessional loans, combined with robust technical support packages. This allows ASEAN countries to overcome local budgetary constraints and accelerate their adoption of advanced technology far faster than they might otherwise be able to.
It's an economically viable solution that delivers high-speed infrastructure quickly and efficiently.
And that convergence of high-speed infrastructure and relentless ambition, it presents this unique opportunity for regional collaboration and what you might call hybridization.
The integration of Chinese efficiency with necessary local cultural contexts.
This is where the long-term strategic value for Southeast Asia really lies, particularly when it comes to talent development. The wolf culture, it acts as an intense, if sometimes brutal, training ground. It forces a transformative shift in performance standards for local talent, pushing them far beyond their previous expectations.
The anecdote we heard from Jakarta, it perfectly captures this culture clash and the subsequent professional leap. Tell us the story about Siti.
Siti was a rising Indonesian marketing star. She was accustomed to a local work environment that really prioritized consensus and a more measured pace. She joined the Jakarta branch of a Chinese tech unicorn.
And what happened?
In her first monthly review, her Beijing transplant manager delivered a classic wolf critique. He rejected her measured performance with a very blunt statement. "You are not hungry enough. Your numbers show you are comfortable. We do not pay for comfort."
Wow. That's a deliberately aggressive high-pressure tactic.
It was perceived as aggression initially, of course, but it sparked a realization in her. Siti had this epiphany that her manager's pressure wasn't personal. It was just the function of a different operating system.
So she didn't quit.
She didn't quit. She internalized the pressure. She stopped waiting for bureaucratic approval or for consensus. She started deep diving into competitor data late at night and treating her role like a critical battlefield. She recognized that the only way to thrive was to innovate aggressively and to match the internal pace of the headquarters.
And what was the result?
The result was remarkable. Within 6 months, she was leading the highest performing team in the entire region. And her ultimate takeaway really encapsulates the whole experience. She said, "I hated the wolf at the door until I realized the wolf taught me how to hunt."
That anecdote brilliantly illustrates how this environment forces a rapid professional evolution. It's actively shaping a new generation of highly capable Southeast Asian tech leaders who can operate at a global competitive speed.
And this speed is the asset, but it can't be imposed blindly. These regional hubs have to employ strategic nuance. They cannot simply accept the entire blitzscaling package without any adaptation, especially given the strong cultural variations within ASEAN.
This is the crux of maximizing local agency. How do they navigate that cultural translation?
They seek a necessary balance between adopting the high-speed infrastructure and maintaining their regional autonomy and cultural sustainability. There's a great example of an executive, Liam, in Singapore.
What was his situation?
He was on a tense video call with the Hangzhou headquarters, and he was pushing back against a purely aggressive blitzscaling strategy that they proposed for expansion into Vietnam and Thailand.
Because he knew it wouldn't work there.
Liam understood that pure, unrelenting wolf aggression would fail in Thailand, a culture that places immense value on sabai, which means ease, comfort, and a harmonious atmosphere.
So if pure aggression won't work, how do you sustain the speed that headquarters demands?
Liam used the wolf's own tool data and competitive analysis to hybridize the strategy. He demonstrated that while the back-end logistics network absolutely needed to operate with Chinese efficiency, high speed, low cost. The customer-facing marketing and service delivery had to be localized.
A hybrid solution.
The resulting strategy was a logistics network with Chinese efficiency, but marketed with Thai warmth. And this successful hybridization confirms that the greatest opportunity for countries like Singapore, Vietnam, and Thailand lies not in cultural imposition, but in translating the intense drive of the wolf mentality into customized, sustainable ecosystems that are optimized for local cultural success.
Ultimately, these Southeast Asian nations are operating in a complicated, high-stakes environment, particularly with the escalating global tech rivalry between the U.S. and China.
They absolutely are, and it's crucial to acknowledge the current landscape. U.S. companies still collectively hold the largest market share in the region. It's around 70% of the digital market.
But the future is getting more complex.
Right. The intensification of the U.S.-China tech rivalry and the palpable risk of tech bifurcation, where the digital world divides into two incompatible technological spheres, makes the future highly complex for them. These nations face direct external pressures regarding which technology to adopt.
So what must their strategic posture be to maximize the benefits while minimizing the risk?
Their strategy must maintain a flexible and neutral stance. This means adopting a two-pronged approach. First, they had to actively diversify their partnerships, drawing necessary financial and technical benefits from both the East and the West, avoiding exclusive reliance on either one.
And the second prong.
Second, and perhaps most importantly, they must prioritize investing in domestic self-reliance and local talent development to maximize their regional autonomy. This pragmatic, hybridized, and self-reliant approach is essential for building a sustainable and secure digital future that can withstand the currents of global rivalry.
So we've charted a path today from intense domestic pressure, the systemic hyper-competition of Niwan and the aggressive culture of the wolf mentality, to an explosive strategy of international growth encapsulated by the digital Silk Road.
It's a powerful, integrated system.
It is built on constant internal competition and self-exploitation, which, paradoxically, delivers unparalleled professional growth and an economic velocity that is unmatched globally. And it explains why we see such rapid infrastructure deployment and market acquisition across Southeast Asia.
I think the key takeaway is recognizing that the relentless innovation cycle created by this aggressive system ensures that the Chinese tech giants are not just keeping pace with global competitors. They're actively defining the frontier in fields like AI, 5G, and e-commerce logistics.
By demanding peak performance, they raise the global standard.
They continually raise the global competitive standard. And the model of expansion into Southeast Asia isn't a simple cultural imposition. It's a complex hybrid strategy where the high-performance hardware of Chinese efficiency, born from that wolf mentality, is increasingly being adapted by local software, the cultural and regional needs for sustainable success. And that's actively shaping future strategies for nations like Malaysia, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand.
It really shows us that in the modern global economy, extreme velocity isn't just a competitive advantage. For the biggest players, it is a necessary condition for existence. The sustained, relentless nature of this domestic competition suggests this engine will just keep exporting its intense capabilities.
And that pressure is forcing all competitors globally to recalibrate their own expectations of speed and agility. That pressure is right now reshaping the digital map of the world.